I think it's safe to say that Hollywood is home to some of the most unhinged freaks known to man. Here are 5 of the freakier fetishes ex-Hollywood fixer Bowers recounts from his adventures in Tinseltown. We're going to start off with a story about England's abdicated king. The former Edward VIII, who abdicated his right to the throne of the United Kingdom in 1936 so he could marry twice-divorced American Wallis Simpson, is remembered nowadays mostly as a punchline on Seinfeld. Bowers remembers the Duke of Windsor, who spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. Far more vividly and fondly, he said, and I quote, "Eddie was good. Really good. He sucked me off like a pro." Bowers avers that one of the major reasons Edward turned down the throne was that his rampant bisexuality could only lead to scandal at some point. The perfect way out of such a conundrum was to marry Mrs. Simpson, who herself shared similar bisexual urges, according to Bowers. The result was a match made in heaven. He said in his book, he liked boys, she liked girls. Occasionally they even had sex with each other, but essentially he was gay and she was a dyke. What better way to save face and ensure that they would have the freedom to live their lives in peace and out of the public spotlight than to marry one another? Before we delve into the next story, let me tell you a bit about Bowers himself. A World War II vet who fought with distinction in the Pacific, Bowers was born on a Midwestern farm and ended up pumping gas in Hollywood in 1946. Working at a service station on Van Ness Boulevard, he was picked up one day by Canadian actor Walter Pidgeon, an Oscar nominee known for star turns in films such as How Green Was My Valley and Mrs. Miniver. They drove back to Pidgeon's house, and the two of them, joined by a male friend of the actor, engaged in some really hot sex for an hour or so. Thus began Bowers' decades-long role as Hollywood's leading boy toy and procurer of sexual favors for the stars. Although he accepted tips for his amorous romps, he never engaged in prostitution per se, and as he became the go-to guy to set up all manner of trysts for publicity-shy celebrities, many of whom were closeted gays and lesbians, he never became a pimp either. Rather, he was a fixer who delighted in bringing together stars and people who wanted to sleep with them. The tricks may or may not have been tipped, but Bowers says he never took a cut. But enough about Bowers, on to our next story. Indiana native and Mussolini enthusiast Cole Porter is still remembered as one of the main composers of the Great American Songbook. Yet Bowers recalls that the openly gay and ultra-promiscuous Anything Goes creator had a huge appetite and narrow tastes when it came to the boudoir. I soon learned that Cole's passion was oral sex. He could easily suck off 20 guys, one after the other, and he always swallowed. There are many people, both male and female, who really enjoy the taste of semen. Porter was one of them. On one later occasion, I took about 9 of my best-looking young guys over to his place, and he sucked off every single one of them in no time. Boom, 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 and it was all over. On to our next story. Spencer Tracy was a generous, good-hearted man, says Bowers, who liked to cuddle after drinking himself into a stupor. Just not with his most famous leading lady, Katharine Hepburn, whom Tracy despised. He told Bowers that she treated him like dirt. She was contemptuous of him. Tracy's PR-driven relationship with the lesbian Hepburn was a farce, a non-existent fairy tale romance, whose fraudulence helped drive the actor's actor toward becoming an alcoholic's alcoholic, writes Bowers. He recalls many tender moments such as this one. I turned off the lights, undressed him, then got undressed myself, climbed into bed with him, and held him tightly like a baby. He continued to slobber and curse and complain. By then, he had had so much to drink that I hardly understood a word he was saying. Speaking of Hepburn, Bowers contends she was purely lesbian in her tendencies and that he set up the Bryn Mawr grad with over 150 women. None was more bewitching than a young beauty named Barbara, with whom Hepburn maintained a 49-year relationship. which means rumors of a physical relationship between the germophobic industrialist and movie mogul Howard Hughes and Hepburn are pure hooey. Howard was as straight as an arrow and really liked women, but ironically, he hardly ever had sex with them. He was so fanatically fussy about his own health as well as the cleanliness and pristine beauty of the young lady that if she ever wore even the slightest hint of makeup that he did not like, he would make her take a shower immediately and wash everything off. And if, heaven forbid, she had even the tiniest blemish or a pimple, he simply would not touch her. He would not touch her. Next, Charles Laughton. Among the most memorable roles of the great actor and director Charles Laughton was his titular turn in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Quasimodo was a regular client of Bowers for years, with a fetish that will turn the stomach of even the most jaded reader of Hollywood bios. Was this true? Had Charles asked to defecate into the pot? Is that what he had smeared on his sandwich? Well, apparently it was. Charles sat down, carefully placed one slice of bread on top of the other, neatly cut the stack in two, and then, without saying a word or even giving us a cursory glance, bit into it. After he had downed the entire sandwich, he got up and went to the sink to rinse off the plate. Bowers avers that the mark of Zorro Heartthrob was a doo-doo queen, Bowers' term, who liked to have female partners shit on him during sex. Where most people would find perversion, Bowers only finds different strokes for different folks. That's enough for this video. Has it been 5 stories? I don't recall. Anyways, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us immensely.